The role of an NHL coach can be brutal. In fact, in the past 2 years, we've seen the most coach firings in NHL history. And getting fired can happen for a magnitude of reasons. Your team is underperforming, they disagree with management, or perhaps the team just needed to shake up the system. However, sometimes we see absurd incidents. Whether it's bullying or benching a star player, we've seen coaches get dumped for ludicrous reasons. So comment down below your team's worst coach in team history, and make sure to press subscribe for some more awesome hockey content. The last video I uploaded on child prodigies has been my best video in channel history. So I really appreciate the support. You guys are truly changing my life, and I can't believe it. So let's keep it up, let's keep the grind going, let's get straight into this video. We'll start with Dale Hunter. Because after spending 12 long years in the Washington Capitals system, finally, in 1999, Dale Hunter would retire. And instead of retiring in peace, maybe starting a podcast, Hunter would stay strongly involved in the hockey world. In fact, not even 1 year later, Dale Hunter would purchase the London Knights franchise. And during his ownership, Hunter would evolve the Knights into the most successful junior franchise in the world. And to give you some perspective, the London Knights, an OHL team, made more operating income than 7 NHL teams. On top of producing talents like Patrick Kane, Mitch Marner, John Carlson, Bo Horvat, and many, many more. And so now that you have Hunter's backstory, as you can tell, he knows hockey. And he made a very successful career after the NHL. So during the 2012 NHL season, it was a massive shock when the Washington Capitals announced that Dale Hunter would be leaving his duties in London to take over as the head coach. And well, it was a complete and utter disaster. Because after replacing Bruce Boudreau mid-season, Dale Hunter would try to completely change the cap system, as he wanted the team to be more defensive focused. So think of Barry Trotz today with the Islanders. And in doing so, Dale Hunter would be routinely benching Alex Ovechkin. Ovechkin, just arguably the greatest pure goal scorer in NHL history. And in return, not only did Ovechkin have the worst season in his entire NHL career by a mile, but he was being taken out of key situations, which would cause a lot of inner turmoil. And after only 60 games as head coach in the NHL, before getting canned, Dale Hunter and the Capitals would mutually agree to terminate his contract. And by no means am I saying that Dale Hunter is or was a bad coach, but his extreme coaching style, combined with him cutting down, if not straight up benching Ovechkin, was going to ultimately shock the system. And since then, Hunter has returned back to the London Knights, where they continue to be a junior powerhouse. Next, we have the monumental downfall of Mike Babcock. After failing to make it as a player, Babcock would go to the University of McGill, where he captained the team, and graduated with a physical education degree. And interestingly enough, Babcock would also do postgraduate work in sports psychology. Sports psychology. And after his time with McGill, Babcock would start his very successful coaching career, where he would rapidly move up the system, coaching college hockey, university hockey, the WHL, the AHL, U18 World Juniors, and finally, in 2002, Babcock would take over as the head coach of the Mighty Ducks. And throughout the next 2 decades, Babcock would have a prolific career, winning 5 gold medals for Team Canada and a Stanley Cup. So, in 2015, when Babcock was announced as the new coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, it was a big deal. He might be the savior to bring home the first cup since 1967. But after 3 first-round exits, Babcock's time in the NHL would come crashing down, as allegations of serious verbal attacks were made public. Johan Franzen, the Mule, coming out saying he was mentally tortured by Babcock for years.
Johan Franzen, and some of the things he said to him on the bench, I don't know what he said to him behind closed doors one-on-one, but he's blatantly, verbally assaulted him. He just broke down and had a nervous breakdown.
Mike Commodore freaking out on Twitter. Mitch Marner, one of the nicest, genuine players in the NHL, would be abused as a rookie. And one of the main examples that came out was that Mitch Marner had to single-handedly rank from best to worst the effort levels of every single one of his teammates, which Babcock would share to the entire team. That is just messed up. And for all you old school people out there, do not get me wrong, some of my favorite coaches of all times were ones with old school mentalities. But there's a difference between instilling a winning behavior and mentally abusing your players, if not just borderline bullying. And it is a shame that a coach as decorated as Babcock had to go out in such a shameful way. But what do you guys think? Will a coach like Babcock after this ever find his way back into the NHL? Comment down below your opinion, I would love to know. Next, we have Bill Peters. And alongside the wave Mike Babcock created, Bill Peters would shockingly, quote unquote, resign, aka voluntarily leave before getting fired. And this was due to racist actions. And what is extremely odd about this story is that Bill Peters has been closely connected to Babcock his entire career, going all the way back to the 80s, where Bill Peters was the captain of Mike Babcock's Red Deer College team. Peters would then go on to being a scout for the Spokane Chiefs, where Babcock would be the coach. Bill Peters would then take over as head coach when Babcock left to the NHL. And then a few years later, Babcock would even recruit Bill Peters to be his assistant coach in Detroit. Their entire careers were closely linked together. So the fact they were both fired in the same week for absurd reasons is a bit more than just an incredible coincidence. Because after being hired in 2018, Bill Peters would take over an inconsistent but very talented Flames team. And he would do extremely well, as the Flames would finish first in the Pacific Division with a 50-25-7 record. And considering that the Flames missed the playoffs entirely the year before, Bill Peters was celebrated. However, after starting the season with a very disappointing 12-12-4 record, everything would come crashing down. Because during the outing of Mike Babcock, Akim Aliu would also come out saying that Bill Peters used racial slurs several times directed towards him, an unacceptable action that should never be tolerated in hockey or any other sport. And to our surprise, more news would come out that Bill Peters also kicked one of his former players, Michael Jordan. No, not that one, that Michael would have kicked back. And ensuing this controversy, many Flames, including Matthew Tkachuk and Mark Giordano, would be interviewed on the matter, which they would respond that it was a fair and good investigation and that they expected the termination of Peters. And I almost didn't want to make this video entirely because it is pretty controversial. But being a lifelong fan of hockey, I think it is also a very important conversation to have. Because hockey, in my opinion, is the greatest sport in the world. Racism, which I've also experienced, and verbal and mental abuse does not belong and has never belonged in our game. So, as the game progresses and evolves, I hope we can look back at this time period and think to ourselves, I cannot believe there's ever a time where we had to deal with this hatred. Ugh, that got pretty intense. But anyways, guys, I hope all you guys are doing well. You guys have been showing so much crazy support recently, and it has truly been life-changing. And I really just can't thank you guys more. So, I hope all you guys are doing well. Make sure to press subscribe for some more awesome hockey content. See you guys later.